There's a line that comes up in people's lives infrequently. It may have come up in yours or not. And the line is, "Oh my God, this is really happening." And you know if it's happened in your life. It's usually in a moment that you don't want to happen. Usually you're confronting something very difficult or traumatic, like possibly the end of your life. I think that's, in a way, most often when it happens. You're sitting on an airplane and suddenly it takes a nosedive and this may be the end of your life, and you go, "Oh my God, this is really happening." It's not always that calm. And for many people, it's their first introduction to reality. So what does that mean? Does that mean everything else isn't really happening? That the rest of our life isn't really happening? Only in that moment when the end appears in front of you that you realize this is really happening? It takes a lot to wake up to reality. You know, a car crash, a tornado. Something that disturbs the equilibrium completely. And it's not even usually a good thing that happens when that line comes up. You could be in the middle of your own wedding, you know, winning an Oscar, having a baby. And even then, the line, "Oh my God, this is really happening," doesn't always come up. Sometimes it does. Where you really stop and go, wow. The idea of waking up has a lot to do with this confrontation with this is really happening. This very moment is really happening. And the fact that we are in such denial of that we live constantly in this idea that this is somehow all a dream, keeps us from connecting to truth. This is really happening. Even right now. It's not very dramatic, perhaps. You're just sitting in a room listening to some old guy talk to you. And there's nothing in you that's going, "Oh my God, this is real." But I'm telling you, that's a reaction you start to have when you wake up. This is real. And it's stunning. It's stunning. Because everything is real. It keeps kind of hitting you over the head. Wow. And you have different reactions to it. The reaction to most people facing reality for the first time is variable, but for many people it's terror. This is real, because it suddenly puts everything else in your life in a kind of perspective. It's like, well, that was all denial. Where was I all this time? Where have I been? What's this whole thing that's been going on here? Why haven't I been present? Why haven't I known it was real? If I knew it was real, I would have done something differently. I would have acted differently. Well, it is real. When do you start acting differently? When do you take charge? When do you take it seriously? When do you look at this thing and go, this is happening to me right now. I can do something. I can change this. I can make it better. Something I can do will make it worse. You have a kind of real interactive control over this reality. You can't change everything about it, clearly, But once you know it's real, you start to understand that your actions are real and you can impact reality. And reality impacts you all the time. It's actually such an amazing awareness that it's overwhelming. Some people recoil. I think most people recoil. You know, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want the responsibility of being real. And so we get kind of dull and deadened to the world. We live a life of kind of sleepiness and drowsiness, and some people really go whole hog into, let me out of here. Let me out of reality. I want to be drugged out of it. I want to be stoned out of it. You know, whatever it is, your choice is like, I don't want it to be real. And the things that cover it up are really interesting. You know, I mean, you can actually have buffers against reality. Rudy told me he had put on so much weight because reality was so strong for him that it kept a kind of protective field around him. I could probably say the same thing. You know, it's like reality comes at you in a very profound and overwhelming way, and it's like every minute is vibrantly, wildly, cosmologically alive. One of the things about this is real is that you sense that it is real for you. You sense this is real to me, this end of life situation is happening to me, that I am experiencing reality. The problem with that is it's not true. And that's the biggest limitation in people's experience. That as long as you think, I am experiencing reality, you're still locked in the illusion of reality. Because when you begin to truly know reality, you discover that there's no you. Reality is there's no you. Some people have that flash come and completely obliterate any sense that there is something apprehending, experiencing, being aware of reality. There's just reality, period. It is aware of itself. There's no one you apprehending it, comprehending it, recognizing it, knowing it. It just is. But until that happens, there is this knower of reality, which we call us, me, I. And this knower of reality tends to be very, very misguided, in a way misshapen by their misunderstanding of reality. And you watch this starting to happen very early in the game, very early with children. They start to become this I, me, mine. And the oneness that they know completely as an infant just becomes turned into this singular entity which is separate from all of this. And thus begins this long road of delusion. But it's essential to the process. This is not a bad thing or a wrong thing. Our own delusion, our own sense of separateness feeds the whole. It's absolutely essential to reality. So the fact that we are not aware of reality is in and of itself part of reality. Our misguided sensibility has to exist. And what happens within that is this growing urge to get beyond it, to find your way back. And that really is the life journey. The life journey is a return to what you already knew, or in some profoundly quiet state already know. The journey back to that is what we're all working for. And of course, when you get back to that state, it's a little bit altered, because that which an infant is and already is aware of is known without wholeness. Wrong word. It's known without mature clarity, let's say. Because the awakening of an adult into the infant-like state is the awakening of a full and realized mind. It's a wholeness. It is bigger than what a baby knows. It is bigger. It's the same universe, it's the same truth, but it's a bigger realization. Those of you who've had this experience of, oh my God, this is real, know that there is a kind of horror sometimes facing the bigness, the vastness, the diminishing of the you that occurs in that moment. The annihilation or the potential annihilation of you. And it's really hard to face. It's really hard. It's terrifying to the you, to the I. It can't handle it. And for many people, the last moment of their life is a terrifying experience. And it's terrifying because nothing is prepared for it. It comes as a shock. Oh my God, this is real. It's really happening. It's not a complete shock because something in you recognizes as it's happening that you kind of know it was always going to happen. You know it. Now it's really happening. And you don't feel at all prepared, and you feel traumatized and like, please not now, God, let me get ready. Please let me prepare. Well, you've had however many, 20, 30, 50, 60, 80 years to prepare. That last moment is very late in the game. It's very late in the game. So when reality hits you at the last moment, you are going to suffer the annihilation and your own resistance to annihilation in that moment. So the spiritual journey is a slow unfolding and letting go. Rudy called it surrender. Learning to surrender, learning to let go over and over, deeper and deeper, of all the things that keep you from being real. And life is brilliantly programmed to bring you right up against all of that stuff. The thing is, most of the stuff that makes us real causes us fear. So, as we arrive at fear, we turn away and go the other way. But it's by moving through fear that you go, this is real. This is real, because you can feel it. You feel it's real. And you're so afraid of it that you turn the other way. But the spiritual seeker does the opposite. The spiritual seeker goes up to fear and goes, I get you. I get it. I'm going to stand here, I'm going to be with you, because you are part of my truth. You are part of my truth and reality. And you stand there, and this reality lets you in. Something falls away. You are able to open to a deeper part of truth. And as you do that, you become more and more awake. I thought in my own awakening in North Carolina almost a couple of years ago that it was done, that it was finished. And it felt that way. So much fell off. The cataclysmic falling off of stuff was so powerful, and the fear was not there. And it was like, it was just stuff was gone. And it was so beautiful and so perfect and so wonderful. And for months there was no me there. It was just, the Bruce thing was not there, and there just was all of this. And then as I've talked on these videos, Brucing came back in many different forms, and life still had stuff to teach me. It still had big stuff to teach. And it's a fascinating journey, because what comes up now is really, really reality without the Bruce familiarity to deal with reality. I don't have anything to fall back on that used to know how to handle this stuff. And I'll tell you, the gift of not knowing how to handle it is that handling it is what keeps you away from it. Handling reality obstructs reality. When you can't handle it, it just comes at you, and you just are clobbered by truth. Being clobbered by truth may sound like a terrible thing, but it's what you want. It's what we all want. We want to know the truth. And when there's no defenses left, which is part of this process, truth comes at you and it just... And the deepening of your awakening takes place. Now I'm telling you that as my experience. I'm not telling it to you as the truth, because I don't know the truth other than what I'm saying, which is the truth as it's coming through. So if you're experiencing it differently, talk about it differently, write about it, do whatever you need to do to express it, but find a way to live your truth. Find a way to be the truth that you are. Find a way to go, oh my God, this is really happening. And you start to discover that, oh my God, this is really happening, describes everything that's going on in your life. Everything. Oh my God, this is really happening. I'm really sitting here talking to you. You're really sitting here participating in this. There actually is a deeper understanding than that. There's a deeper understanding, which is that there's no you and I in the middle of any of this. This thing is just happening. And when the thing in you that thinks I'm the teacher and you're the student disappears, which it will, and when the thing in you which thinks that there is somebody separate from the lesson itself, when you just realize that this voice that's speaking is your own voice, you begin to understand the truth is rising inside you in its own way. In its own way. It just rises. And that there's no you and there's no me to exchange it. It's just happening in this field of being. And we are that field of being. That's all we are, this field of being. And it goes beyond that, but I don't understand it. I truly don't understand it. And I don't understand it because there's nobody left to understand it. I just know that it is happening. It is. This is really happening. And that's all I know. That's pretty much all I know at this point. And I can talk about that and share it for whatever value it has. And I don't even know what value it does have in sharing it, except I'm called to do it, and I'm somehow grateful for that. I sit down here and I feel so at one with the message, if you will, and so grateful to have that message rise up and express itself. You know, in an hour it won't be doing that. It'll be doing something else. That's what's really amazing. You know, there's no preparation for this class. You know that. I don't sit down and come up with an idea of what's going to be spoken about. I sit down and I talk. And if you guys aren't here, I don't talk. If I'm sitting with my granddaughter, I just rubber belly and laugh and play. If I'm sitting with people in the theater, they don't talk about this stuff at all. So I just sit there. I say that scene should be changed and that light should be changed or whatever, but I don't. It's a whole different persona. So you don't walk around in a state of constant euphoria or constant anything. It's variable, just like every one of your lives is completely variable. You know, things happen all the time. This is really happening, happens all the time. And what happens is as valuable in its manifestation, whatever it is that's going on, as anything else that's going on. You know, so if you're at the supermarket walking through the aisle, that's just as valuable as sitting under the Bo tree being totally enlightened. There's no difference. It's just what is. The only difference is whether there is a you there thinking it's happening to you, or ultimately that structure of you gets washed away gently or profoundly, washed away, washed away, washed away, until that no longer separates you from what is. And if you can do that before you die, you will walk around awakened and enlightened and, they say, free. But what's free is that you're no longer interacting with the fact that, oh, I'm in a supermarket, oh, I'm at the gas station, oh, I'm sitting teaching a class. It just is. It just keeps changing. And that's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. And the fact that it's happening is all you need to know. This is really happening. That's all I can tell you. Any questions? Yeah, you don't have to ask.
It's just something that so it's a little personal about work. I struggle with particularly in the last 15 years, especially now that I teach it so much. Just the character, need, desire, want, motive. That there is this core separate self that's driven by just a particular unconscious need, and which is almost antithetical to the very thing you're talking about.
But it's not. I mean, that's the big point. This doesn't go away until it goes away. So while it's still here, it's driven by all these forces. And what you come to understand being the wrong word, what you come to allow to be and allows the wrong word as well. What just happens is this Andrew Wagner is. It really is. It's true. This Andrew Wagner is really happening. Bruce Rubin is really happening. It's, what can I say? Except there's nobody there. But that part is separate. And knowing that is really meaningful and valuable, but it doesn't change the truth of it. The truth is, it's really happening. This thing is happening. You have wants and desires. Your daughter's the most important thing in the world to you. You're not going to change. That's not going to go anywhere. That doesn't. You don't awaken and go, oh, she's nothing to me. I'm not here. She's not here. It's not like that. You just go, oh my God, she's really happening. This gorgeous, beautiful entity is really in front of me, and I have a life given and devoted to making her safe and happy. That's real. It's more real than ever. Except that you don't own that. You're just the thing that is living that. I've talked about it early on in this enlightenment thing, which is the wave particle. The particle is the personality, the ego mind, which is there, and the wave is another way of looking at it, in which, in a way, you're just one with everything that ever is or was. And the enlightened being knows that they are the full spectrum, from completely one with all and the particle at the same time. Most people do not know they are the wave. They just don't know it, and they don't want to know it. And all enlightenment is, and all knowing this is really happening is you go, I'm the wave, as well as the particle. I'm the vast totality of being. At the same time, I am this tiny, obscure little thing that's part of that whole. That's all it is. And waking up to that is an enormous shock to the system. So if you can wake up to it gradually, it helps. Or if you wake up to it very fast, then you have to spend a lot of time as that particle dealing with that piece of information. Like, oh. I mean, it's really overwhelming. People, sit around for years trying to go, what is this? What is this? But if it unfolds slowly, which is a nice way to have it happen, then, chunks of you fall away and you just feel freer and freer and freer to be whatever it is you are. That's all that happens. But nothing changes. And they tell you that from the beginning. Nothing changes. It's exactly as it was before, except for this awareness, this is really happening. That's what changes. This is not a dream and an unconscious floating through space and time. This is real. And that's important. Bill?
Well, all that I'm hearing right now is that it's all from the self. It's just whatever. It's like we can only command ourselves, and dealing with situations like mental illness, where it comes into my life, there's no way to. I can't find a communication basis to touch, and so it's like, how does just reconciling all this inside the self, how can we affect others?
You affect others one way or another. I mean, being in the presence of another affects them. They may hate you, they may love you, they may get confused by you, they may want to strike out, they may want to hug you. Who knows? People will react, or they may just deny that you're there. But the true affecting another person just comes from being. Just be. And when the ego is involved, when it starts to interact with people, it has wishes, desires, outcomes, things that it wants as a result. So that when the ego is working for its own benefit, it manipulates others to try to get from them what it wants for itself. That creates the drama of the world. We're all caught in that. Everyone is caught in that. You want to be loved, you want to be held, you want to be dropped, whatever it is you want, you're expressing it all the time. And that's the little particles, little atoms in a way that keep creating matter and time, space, and all the stuff that we're involved in. That is happening from a very deeply unconscious place in most of us. It just goes on. When consciousness begins to open up into wave activity, you become one with the wholeness of the whole of existence. There's great wisdom in that, there's great insight, there's great stillness, there's great knowledge, there's great comprehension, if you will, of how to better behave. And that goes on for a long time until there's, in a sense, no you to understand it, and then it just is what it is, which is always benevolent. I don't know, benevolence is the wrong word, it's just always real. But when that happens, and everywhere in between, you will be a emissary of this enormous energy, of this enormous clarity, of this compassion, of this knowing. And you will bring that into every interaction, so that when you start interacting with other particles, with other people, even people who are crazy, even people who are mentally ill, you will bring to that the core of your being, which in truth is the core of their being, and the core of their being is not mentally ill. Mental illness is a part of the structure of the particle of being, just like physical health. And at some point this just breaks down, dissolves, and goes away completely. So at some point, whoever this person is who's mentally ill will experience either a healing of some kind, or they will just decompose and go back into wave. And then, whatever that means, come back again, perhaps healed. Maybe the whole experience of being mentally ill was a necessary component of some kind of growth for them. Maybe it's something karmic from a past life. I mean, who knows? It's hard to judge all that. It's so big and so variable. But all of us are confronted with people who are very hard to get through to. We're all confronted with that. And everybody has to find their own particular way. My experience with that, because I'm meeting a lot of new people, some of whom are very hard to get through to, is just be open, be available, don't judge them, try to love them, and the really difficult ones reach out to, in a way, be there with them, and find what happens when you're with them. And what I have found throughout my practice is that your energy, your attention, your love, your availability starts to break them down. Something starts to happen. It's almost always amazing. And you start to touch them in a way, you start to feel them in a way, and they transform because of your attention. Truly transform. I see this all the time. And it's really a beautiful thing to watch. And it has nothing to do with anything other than attention or being with someone, being with them.
Thank you.
Try it. I mean, just see it. Even with this person you're dealing with, I think, one last thing about this, I call it it's just touch. One of the miraculous curing capacities we all have is to touch people. And if you touch people with authentic care and feeling and compassion, it will change their chemistry. I don't call it healing, it just changes their chemistry. And if you want to see what that feels like, when you're in a bad way, have someone come up to you and just hug you or touch you on the back or whatever they do. It changes everything. Everything. And that's one of the great gifts we can give. It's called being without having to say a word. It just helps. Anyone else?
I was just going to say, just the term mental illness already creates sort of a gap between you and that person, and if you were just aware of them without the title of them being different than you, but maybe exhibiting things that you don't exhibit, you can meet sort of in the same place.
Well, no, it's of course, and that's really wonderful. Yeah, worth thinking. The label itself is an obstruction, and so all of us who label people, and we all do, we label everybody very quickly. That cuts us off, makes us separate, different, and protected from them. And we're not separate, different, or protected from anyone, really.
This is a sort of like this conundrum to me. It's kind of being awake, being aware, or being in this little I, me thing, trying to control the situations. Because in my head, it's kind of like I can waltz through things and my energy will work, and then something will butt up against that I need to control, and either I cannot control it at that time until either I have to sit or think or lie down, and a new energy will come. I cannot control that energy, and like which one is real, all those should words that I try to take out, it's like I can't do this now. Tomorrow though, there is something, some natural flow within me maybe, or the next day, where I can see a clarity.
Well,
Although in the world, the I need is supposed to have done it 2 days ago without consequence.
well, if it was, it would have happened. If you need it, when it comes when it wants to or when it needs to, and we don't have a lot of control over that. What we do have control over, which is very valuable to us if we can remember it, is we can, quote, meditate or find stillness. We can go into a place that, in a way, course corrects. It redefines, it re-assimilates. We go into this deep, quiet place and we come back with a kind of new awareness and clarity. That's one thing we can do. And it's one thing many people do not do. I mean, you can wait for 2 days for things to change. You can hope it will be different. The obstacle that came up to you can sit there as an obstacle for years or days or weeks. But you can also go into this place inside and get a new perspective. And that new perspective may, one, show you a way through the obstacle, or even show you that the obstacle doesn't even really exist. And then you have a new way of moving through the rest of your day. And that's very valuable. That's where going between particle and wave is so helpful, because you have this access to larger intelligence. And when you get to full intelligence, if you will, or full awareness, then there's no such thing as obstacles. Nothing. It's just what is. It's just what is. Pain, it's what is. Joy, it's what is. It just is. And then all of that other things of thinking it's an obstacle or it's an advantage, you'll realize that's just ego mind looking to its own satisfaction. And that doesn't matter. When you start to get really, really larger in your vision, ego mind just becomes a small part of something very big. And you can handle a lot more stuff than you ever imagined, and your own personal advantage becomes less meaningful. Not completely meaningless, but less important. Does that help? A little bit? I know this all sounds very intellectual, and I hate that it does, but all I'm trying to say is, again, this is really happening. Go with it.
That's a good one. Go with it.
Go with it.
Oh, just,
No.
it's funny you said that because 2 months ago I had a pretty violent car accident in which I thought I was a passenger in a car and we T-boned another car. Both cars were totaled and I thought the woman in the other car was going to die. And in the second and a half as it was happening, that's the first thing that went through my mind. I went, oh, I can't believe this is happening.
Well, that's often when it happens. I mean, that's when we wake up to it.
Yeah, but I think in thinking about it now, the sort of the beauty of that experience was that it was incredibly calming for me. I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel anything other than sort of an acceptance of the moment.
I think that's a great comment, because I think that's what happens to a lot of people, is that they do find this is really happening, that there's no that the person they think they are, disappears into the largeness of the event and the largeness of what is, and that is calming, that is ultimately liberating. And so, if you can get past your panic, or past whatever it is that's denying this is really happening, something remarkable takes place. You know, the man who's sort of been my mentor in my spiritual life, Bart Marshall, his first awakening took place in the middle of a battle in Vietnam. Because this is really happening. And he went, oh. And the little him disappeared and the big him arrived or presented itself. So, yeah, no, real life is trying to get at us all the time. I mean, the best version of this is you walk outside and it's a beautiful day and you go, oh, this is really happening, and you don't need any drama. It just is. Okay, oops, Paul.
Plus, you have to think about that you've been doing meditation for a long time to calm you down.
I know,
Really
actually,
helps.
I attribute that moment to the years of class.
It helps. It helps.
helps.
You know, if you've been sitting still for a long time, you tend to go there. If you haven't accessed that before, that isn't always what happens. But it can. Okay. Thank you, guys.